We know that recycling isn't the solution when it comes to Sweden. Instead, we need to focus on wearing the products already in place more than what we actually do today. Based on our work, we know that everybody has to contribute to development, and we need to work with the whole value chain.
Circular economy business models ensure products are used more. In other words, they allow businesses to create more revenue without producing more products or extracting more raw materials. But what do these business models look like in practice? In this video, we will hear from different speakers from the European policy world who will be telling us all about the role of policy in setting up the direction for businesses and innovation towards a circular economy. We will be focusing specifically on the fashion and textiles industries. But first, let's hear from Marilyn Martinez, the project manager at the Make Fashion Circular team at the Foundation, about what sorts of business models we are seeing emerge in the market and what needs to happen for these business models to become the norm rather than the exception.
So in fashion, this typically means that the circular business models that we see usually are making money by increasing the amount of times clothing are being worn. And the most common examples that we're seeing on the market today are re-commerce and rental circular business models, which in a sense, they start making more revenue and creating more revenue streams by rotating existing products through different users. Most importantly for this session is the need for collective action to really address and ease the uptake of circular business models throughout the fashion industry. And what I mean collective action is not just the fashion industry, but also the investor community, the media, and everyone around the fashion industry to act together and collaborate so that we can effectively start embedding new ways of accessing fashion within our mainstream culture.
Collaborative and collective action are key to advancing circular economy business models, and policymakers play a huge role in this. Now, it is time to hear from those actually influencing and designing the policy frameworks that we need in order to accelerate the transition. Let's hear from Lars Mortensen, the circular economy expert at the European Environment Agency, who is going to be telling us all about policy as a key enabler of innovation and about how to make the economics work for businesses.
When we talk about innovation, most people think of innovation is about technology. That is correct. There is technological innovation needed, for example, on textiles, new types of textiles, new ways of recycling, etc. But there's also social innovation needed, and a lot of people really are not so much aware of that. Social innovation is about new ways of working with people, new forms of interacting, the whole social media and all that. So the innovation is needed, but the innovation doesn't happen by itself, and that's what we are pointing to, because the policy actually needs to enable the innovation as well. So it's really important that the policymakers put the right policies, the right regulation in place to enable the scaling of the circular business models and not to hinder them happen. But making the economics work is really important for the circular economy. The circular economy is about making the economy circular, the production and the consumption in the economy. Of course, changing the economy is not easy. This is about using taxes, levies, removing the subsidies, which is not easy. It's not easy for policymakers. Often policymakers hesitate to do so. But I think it's really important to move towards circular business models. You also need to get the prices right. You need to have prices actually reflect the environmental damage of the products that you produce. And one way to do this could perhaps be to agree on targets overall at EU level or at country level, and then leave it up to the country to say, okay, how can we best meet these targets?
Speaking of the European Union and establishing key targets to accelerate the adoption of circular economy business models, let's move to talk to Paola Migliorini, the Deputy Head of the Unit on Sustainable Production, Products and Consumption at the European Commission, about the journey of this institution towards the circular economy and what concrete actions they are taking to accelerate the adoption of the circular economy business models within the textiles industry. At European level, we have been trying to indicate more clearly where we wanted to go last year, I would say, with the European Green Deal, so the green growth strategy for this Commission. And a few months later, the Circular Economy Action Plan #2, we identified a series of key value chains that really needed to go circular. They needed this policy enablers push, I could say, just to repeat what Lars has indicated. So why? Is certainly because we have identified it as an area with big potentials, untapped potentials, and also we have made it a political commitment. I think that one of the key successes of any major changes is really to have a big political momentum. We are going to focus on, at least on design and on the waste aspects. So when you think about design, you need to look through the angles that we see. So looking at requirements and incentives. For business models, we really think that we need to do more on incentives. At the same time, some of the requirements that will come out, and I see how complex it can be for the participants to follow, but some of the requirements that will come out with different measures on sustainable products, for example, that we're going also to adopt, will allow to have the enabler in place for the most appropriate business models. I'm thinking about, for example, reparability, requirements for recycled content to a certain extent, requirements for durability, the type of material. So all these elements will be hopefully part of specific requirements that will enable then businesses to understand and to turn into practice and into new business models the measures that we will have designed in the course of the years. So it's a combination of requirements and incentives. So also maybe supporting. You see, just something that I always find as engaging with some stakeholders. We say that the circular economy makes business sense. And then we are asked about what are the incentives that you're putting in place. Incentives I'm talking about, for example, funds. So I always try to strike the balance because I think it's important to have innovation funds through research programs, for example, in place to kickstart, to support, to cover for the risk part, maybe at the beginning, and to kickstart this revolution, let's say. But then, in the end, the business models that will take place, hopefully, will function as an example. And so then, really, they will change also the habits of the consumer. So the whole system will kick in, hopefully not too late. Huh? I think that the best contribution that businesses can do would be on the design. And certainly, if you allow me, if we're talking about businesses from the fashion world, I think that would be in engaging consumers. And in fact, we want to team up as much as possible with the fashion world to draw with us also the consumers. Because let's face it, the circular economy is going to happen if all the partners, all the actors play their role. So we can talk about design and business models for ages, but if we don't engage the consumers also in this journey, we will not get there. So I think there's a plethora of roles and then of areas, unfortunately or fortunately, where we can actually act.
Now, let's move from the regional to the national level to talk to Rebecca Ögla, the Senior Advisor at the Swedish Environmental Protection Agency, about some of the regulations and policies that Sweden has already put forward.
So to start with, we have a reduced tax on a VAT reduction on repair from 25 till 12% on the repair of textiles. But this one has, though, not been evaluated yet. So, and it seems to be more difficult to evaluate than we thought from the very start when we started to ask about this. So unfortunately, we have to wait a bit more for information about this. We also have a total VAT relief for non-profitable organizations working with secondhand. But other commercial secondhand operators have the ordinary VAT on 25%. Sweden has also had an EPR scheme proposed on consultation, and now the answers have to be compiled and evaluated. And the purpose of introducing an EPR for textiles is twofold. So the first one is to achieve environmental benefit through the increased collection of textiles for reuse and textile waste for recycling, primarily then for preparation for reuse and recycling. The other one is to place responsibility for waste management and recycling on textiles on the producer based on the polluter pays principles. We know that recycling isn't the solution when it comes to Sweden. Instead, we need to focus on wearing the products already in place more than what we actually do today. Based on our work, we know that everybody has to contribute to development, and we need to work with the whole value chain. And the transition to circular economy must be conducted jointly by politicians, the business sector, the public sector, academia, private individuals, and society. The solutions to the problem, they cannot be solved by one single group. So everybody has to contribute, and we think that it's important to work, for example, both to stimulate the supply as well as the demand for more sustainable products and services. These changes have to go hand in hand.
Thank you for watching this video. We have a longer version of this conversation with all the speakers that you can find on the description. If you would like to see more, please subscribe to our YouTube channel or follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter to be notified every time we go live. And if you've really enjoyed this content, please click on the like button and share it with your network.